My son forged my name to buy a $450,000 mansion, then shoved me when I found out. Have you ever felt like just a bank, not a mother? Brandon blamed me for ruining his life, even after I gave up my savings, my health, and my dreams to raise him. And now, he's not just stealing from me. He's targeting other elderly clients, too. I taught high school math for 35 years. I've solved thousands of equations, but nothing prepared me for this. If you stay with me, I'll show you how I uncovered the forged loan, exposed his lies, and rebuilt my life, with the help of my granddaughter, a former student, and my oldest friend. He smashed the photo frame he made for me in second grade, called me suffocating, and thought I'd stay silent. But I found the hidden diary. I heard the voicemail. I faced the truth. If you've ever been betrayed by your own child, don't scroll. This story might help you take your power back. Before we dive deeper, I'd love to know a little about you. Are you reading this from your cozy home or somewhere on the go? Drop a 1 in the comments if you're at home, a 2 if you're out and about, or 3 if you're somewhere in between. I read every comment, and your answer might just inspire what comes next. Let's begin together. I set out the barbecue ribs, their smoky aroma curling through my apartment. But Brandon's Rolex caught the evening light, gleaming brighter than my smile. Why did I feel like a guest in my own home? The faded curtains in my Phoenix living room rustled in the October breeze. It was October 15th, 2024, and the air carried a hint of jasmine from a farmer's market bouquet on the table. My modest apartment, with its worn linoleum and mismatched chairs, felt smaller tonight, dwarfed by the suburban sprawl of Phoenix outside. I smoothed my apron, my fingers brushing the arthritis that ached from years of chalkboard equations, and glanced at the dusty photo frame on the shelf. Me teaching Brandon math, his young face all grins. That boy was gone, replaced by a man I barely recognized. I arranged the ribs and a homemade apple pie, its crust golden from the oven. Brandon, my son, lounged at the table, his Rolex glinting with every gesture. At 35, he carried a loan officer's confidence, but his deep-set eyes, so like mine, held a sharpness I didn't trust. "Big things coming, Mom," he said, grinning at Vanessa, his wife. Her diamond necklace sparkled, a luxury that didn't match her supermarket clerk job. Vanessa, 33, tossed her blonde hair, her smile tight as if hiding something. She'd never forgiven me for missing her wedding years ago. I'd been stuck at a parent-teacher conference, prioritizing my students. Raymond, my husband, scrolled his phone, his gray hair catching the light. At 62, he was lost in his accountant's world, his art dreams long buried to support our family. I felt a pang. Knowing his distance was my fault, too. I'd focused so much on Brandon. Lila, my 15-year-old granddaughter, bounced over, her dark curls like Brandon's childhood ones. "Your ribs are the best, Grandma," she whispered, slipping a handmade bookmark into my hand, an equation scrawled on it, X plus Y Corsair love. Her warmth was a lifeline, her love for my math stories a bridge across generations. I hugged her, my heart lifting briefly. "Time to eat," I called, my voice brighter than I felt. We gathered around the table, the clink of plates mixing with the hum of a neighbor's radio playing soft jazz. Brandon bragged about a bank deal, his voice loud. "Got a major client lined up. West Heights, Mom. Fancy neighborhood." His eyes flicked to Vanessa, who nodded, her necklace catching the light. Raymond grunted, not looking up. I forced a smile, my stomach twisting. Their wealth felt wrong, too sudden for their incomes. I tried to share a teaching story, hoping to connect. One of my students, Javier, solved a quadratic equation in a way that... Brandon cut me off, his tone sharp. "Nobody cares about your old stories, Mom." The words hit like a slap, my chest tightening. Vanessa smirked, stirring her iced tea. Raymond kept scrolling, silent. Lila squeezed my hand under the table, her eyes wide with hurt. I swallowed, my sacrifices flashing. Nights tutoring to pay Brandon's college tuition, only for him to drop out, blaming me for pushing too hard. I'd thought it was love, not a debt he'd resent. The doorbell buzzed. a welcome distraction. I stepped outside to take a call, the cool air soothing my flushed face. It was Marlene, my best friend, her voice warm over the phone. "Ellie, book club's next week. You in?" At 58, Marlene's wit was sharper than ever, her own reconciliation with her estranged son giving her insight into my struggles. I leaned against the railing, the jasmine scent grounding me. "I feel invisible, Marlene," I admitted, my voice low. "Brandon and Vanessa, they don't see me." "You're their rock, Ellie," she said. "Don't let them forget it." As I hung up, I heard Brandon's voice through the open window, hushed on his phone. "The paperwork's set, don't worry," he said, glancing at me. His eyes darted away, uneasy. My pulse quickened. What paperwork? Back inside, I tidied up, my hands brushing Brandon's jacket on the chair. A folded paper slipped out, hitting the floor with a soft thud. I picked it up, my breath catching. It was a receipt, crisp and official, listing a $50,000 payment for a West Heights mansion, in my name. I hadn't paid for anything, hadn't signed a thing. My fingers trembled, the numbers blurring. I'd spent 35 years teaching kids to find truth in equations, to face problems head on. But this felt like a problem I couldn't solve. I tucked the receipt into my pocket, my heart heavy. Brandon's insult echoed. "Nobody cares, Mom," stinging deeper now. Lila's bookmark, tucked in my apron, was a small comfort, but Vanessa's smirk and Raymond's silence cut like knives. I'd given everything for this family, poured my savings into Brandon's future, only to be dismissed. Marlene's words rang in my ears. "You're their rock." But rocks could crack under pressure. I stood by the table, the apple pie untouched, its sweetness mocking the bitterness in my throat. Life wasn't an equation, clean and solvable. It was messy, full of unknowns. But I'd taught my students to chase truth, no matter how hard. Maybe it was time I did the same. The receipt burned in my pocket, a question I couldn't ignore. Was I enough for them, or just their means to an end? The receipt named a West Heights mansion. Had I paid for a house I'd never seen? The receipt wasn't trash. It bore my name, $50,000, a West Heights mansion. Why would Brandon hide this from me? I sat at my kitchen table, the fluorescent light flickering above, casting shadows on the worn linoleum. The evening air carried a faint hum of jazz from a neighbor's radio, a coffee shop tune that clashed with the tension gripping my chest. The receipt, crisp and accusing, lay before me, its black ink glaring. $50,000, paid in my name for a mansion I'd never seen. My fingers, stiff from arthritis, traced the words, my mind racing back to years ago when Brandon handed me routine bank forms to sign. I'd trusted him, my only son, without reading the fine print. That blind trust now felt like a noose. I pushed back my chair, the scrape loud in the quiet apartment. The barbecue ribs from earlier sat cold in the fridge, their smoky scent gone, replaced by the faint tang of jasmine from the farmer's market bouquet. I'd spent 35 years teaching Phoenix kids to solve for the unknown, to trust logic over fear. But this wasn't an equation. This was my son, the boy I'd raised alone after his father left, the boy I'd poured my savings into for college, only for him to drop out, blaming me for pushing too hard. His Rolex, Vanessa's diamond necklace, they didn't add up to his loan officer's salary or her supermarket job. I grabbed my phone, my hands trembling, and dialed Brandon. The line rang twice before his voice came through, clipped and impatient. "Mom, it's late. What's up?" I held the receipt, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. "Brandon, I found a receipt in your jacket. $50,000 for a mansion in West Heights. In my name. Explain." Silence stretched, then he laughed, a forced chuckle. "It's just a mix-up, Mom. I paid your insurance, got the envelope swapped. Throw it out." His rushed tone, the same one he'd used as a kid hiding a bad grade, sent a chill down my spine. "Insurance doesn't buy mansions," I said, my voice sharp. He sighed. "I'll fix it, okay? Gotta go." The line went dead. His dismissal stung like a slap, my heart pounding. I sank into the chair, the jazz music mocking my unease. Brandon's hushed call at dinner, the paperwork set, echoed in my head. Vanessa's necklace, too lavish for their budget, flashed in my mind. I'd sacrificed so much, tutoring late nights to fund Brandon's dreams, only to be brushed off like a nuisance. My eyes fell on Lila's bookmark, tucked in my apron, its equation, X plus Y coffers love, a reminder of her warmth. But even Lila's loyalty couldn't erase the hurt of Brandon's lie. The phone buzzed, snapping me back. It was Marlene, my best friend, her voice bright despite the hour. "Ellie, you okay? You sounded off earlier." I clutched the receipt, my words spilling out. "Marlene. Brandon left a receipt, 50 grand, a mansion, in my name. He says it's a mistake, but I don't believe him." Marlene's tone hardened, her own past betrayal coloring her words. "My son hid debts from me, Ellie. Nearly lost my house. Don't wait, check your credit." Her story, a painful reconciliation with her estranged son, hit close. I nodded, though she couldn't see. "I will," I said, my voice firm. "Something's wrong." I set the phone down, the jazz fading as I pulled out my bank statements, their edges frayed from years in a shoebox. My fingers, once swift on a chalkboard, fumbled through the pages. There it was, a $5,000 transfer I hadn't made, dated last month. My breath caught, the numbers blurring. Another transfer, $3,000, from weeks ago. My pension, my careful savings, were being siphoned off, and Brandon's lie, "It's just a mix-up," felt like a blade. Vanessa's curt text from earlier, when I'd asked about the receipt, "Ask Brandon, I don't know," flashed in my mind. Her distance, rooted in my missing her wedding for work, cut deeper now. Had she known? Was she part of this? I stood, pacing the small kitchen, the linoleum cool under my feet. The receipt glowed under the light, a puzzle piece I couldn't ignore. I'd taught my students to face problems, to break them down step by step. Life wasn't as tidy as math, but truth was truth. Marlene's warning rang clear. Don't wait. I thought of her, rebuilding trust with her son, and Lila's bookmark, a symbol of love I still had. But Brandon's greed, his career failures after dropping out, and Vanessa's coldness, they were unknowns I had to solve. My fingers traced the statement's numbers, my math teacher's logic kicking in. Had Brandon been stealing from me for months? The transactions weren't errors. They were theft. How long had my son used my name? My apartment felt smaller tonight, the air heavy with the lingering scent of grilled chicken from last night's barbecue. The flickering kitchen light cast shadows on the linoleum, making the space feel oppressive, like it was closing in. I sat at the table, the bank statement spread before me, its numbers screaming betrayal. $5,000, $3,000, transfers I hadn't authorized. My fingers, knotted from years of chalkboard work, clutched the receipt from Brandon's jacket. $50,000 for a West Heights mansion in my name. I'd bailed him out of college debt, tutoring late nights to cover his tuition, only for him to drop out, blaming me for pushing too hard. That sacrifice, unacknowledged blasé, burned now, a wound reopened. I turned to Raymond, slumped on the couch, his phone glowing in his hands. At 62, his gray hair and tired eyes hid the artist he'd once been, dreams he'd buried for our family. "Raymond," I said, my voice tight, holding up the receipt and statement. "Look at this, $50,000, a mansion in my name. And these transfers, I didn't make them." He glanced up, frowning, his glasses slipping. "You're overreacting, Ellie. Brandon wouldn't do that." His dismissal stung, but I pressed on. "He lied about the receipt, said it was insurance. Explain this." Raymond's jaw tightened, his voice sharp. "You spoiled Brandon, Ellie. Gave him everything. This is your fault." The words hit like a fist, my breath catching. I'd given up so much, savings, nights, dreams, for Brandon. I gave up everything for him, I snapped, my voice cracking, tears pricking my eyes. Raymond looked away, his silence a second betrayal. The argument hung heavy, the grilled chicken scent souring in my throat. I needed answers, not blame. I grabbed my purse, the receipt crinkling inside, and headed for Phoenix Financial Bank. The morning sun glared off downtown's glass buildings, the bank's marble floors gleaming under fluorescent lights. The air smelled of polished wood and coffee, a stark contrast to my apartment's warmth. I approached the counter, my heart pounding, and asked for my credit history. A familiar face appeared. Javier Ruiz, my former student, now in his 30s, his tie crisp but his eyes warm. "Mrs. Martinez?" he said, smiling. "It's been years." I nodded, my hands trembling. "Javier, I need help. Something's wrong with my accounts." We moved to a quiet corner, the hum of bank tellers fading. I showed him the receipt. His face tightened, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Brandon's approving shady loans. I've seen odd paperwork, but I can't say more here. Check your mortgage, Mrs. Martinez." His caution, rooted in gratitude for my teaching, sent a chill through me. I'd helped him master algebra, believed in him when he doubted himself. Now he was risking his job to warn me. "Thank you, Javier," I said, my voice steady despite the fear. I requested my credit history, my hands shaking as I signed the form, the pen heavy with purpose. Back home, the apartment felt like a cage, the grilled chicken smell cloying. I tossed my purse on the table, the receipt fluttering out. Raymond was gone, likely to his office, avoiding me. I paced, my mind racing. I'd taught kids to face problems, to break them down logically. But this, my son's betrayal, my husband's blame, was chaos. I checked my mailbox, a habit, and froze. An unsigned note sat inside, scrawled in black ink. "Check your mortgage, Mrs. Martinez." Javier's warning echoed, amplifying my anger. My pulse thrummed, the note's words a confirmation of something bigger, darker. A mortgage I never took? Brandon's hushed call, the paperwork set, flashed in my mind, his nervous glance now a red flag. I sank into a chair, the note trembling in my hand. Raymond's accusation, "You spoiled him," cut deeper now. A betrayal piled on Brandon's lies. Javier's loyalty, born from classroom days, was a lifeline, but it couldn't erase the cracks in my family. I'd built a life for them, sacrificed my savings, my time, my heart. Was it all for nothing? My math teacher's logic kicked in, urging me to solve this puzzle. I grabbed my keys, the note's West Heights address burning in my mind. Truth wasn't just numbers, it was the only way forward. I walked to my car, Phoenix's autumn leaves crunching underfoot, my resolve hardening. Would I find Brandon's secrets at that address? A $450,000 loan in my name, unsigned. My son's betrayal wasn't just a lie, it could ruin me. The Morning Star Cafe buzzed with the clink of mugs and the rich aroma of coffee, sunlight streaming through checkered curtains. I sat across from Marlene, my hands wrapped around a steaming cup, the warmth doing little to ease the chill in my bones. Phoenix's autumn morning hummed outside, but the note from my mailbox, "Check your mortgage, Mrs. Martinez," weighed heavy in my purse, next to the receipt for a $50,000 mansion payment I hadn't made. I'd missed Vanessa's wedding years ago for a parent-teacher conference, a sacrifice she'd never forgiven. Now her curt text, "Ask Brandon," echoed in my mind, her coldness a knife. Had she known about Brandon's lies? Marlene, her gray curls bouncing, leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "I called my bank contact," she said, sipping her latte. "Ellie, it's bad. A $450,000 mortgage in your name tied to that West Heights mansion." My hands shook, coffee sloshing. My pension, scraped together over 35 years of teaching, couldn't cover a fraction of that. $450,000? I whispered, my voice breaking. Marlene nodded, her face softening. "My son hid debts from me, Ellie. Nearly lost everything. You need answers now." Her own betrayal, years ago with her estranged son, gave her words weight. I nodded, my chest tight with anger, the receipt's ink burning in my memory. The cafe's chatter faded as I pictured Brandon's Rolex, Vanessa's necklace, their smug confidence at my barbecue. I'd poured my savings into Brandon's college, tutoring late nights, only for him to drop out, blaming me for pushing too hard. Now this, a loan that could take my home, my security. My fingers tightened around the mug, rage bubbling where hurt had been. Marlene reached across, her hand steady on mine. You're stronger than this, Ellie. Don't let him bury you. Back at my apartment, the evening shadows stretched long, the faint scent of grilled chicken from last night's dinner lingering. The linoleum felt cold under my feet as I waited for Lila, my granddaughter. The doorbell chimed, and there she was, her dark curls bouncing, a handmade bookmark clutched in her hand. "Grandma," she said, her voice soft, "I made this for you." An equation scrawled across it, x2 plus YU forever, brought a lump to my throat. I hugged her, her warmth a balm against my anger. "Dad's hiding papers," she whispered, her eyes wide. "I saw him lock a drawer in his office." My heart raced. Brandon's hushed call, the paperwork set, flashing back. Lila's loyalty, her love for my math stories, steadied me, but his secrecy fueled my fury. I led Lila to the couch, her bookmark now on my table, a symbol of love amid betrayal. "Thank you, sweetheart," I said, my voice thick. She nodded, worried. "You're okay, right, Grandma?" I forced a smile, my anger flaring at Brandon's deceit. Vanessa's text, "Ask Brandon," felt like a dismissal, her resentment over the wedding cutting deeper now. Had she known about the loan? I couldn't trust her, not yet. Later, alone, I rummaged through my file cabinet, the creak of drawers loud in the quiet apartment. My fingers, stiff from years of chalk, flipped through old statements until I found it. A bank form from last year, my signature scrawled across it. But it wasn't mine. The loops were too sharp, the slant wrong. My heart pounded, rage surging. Brandon had forged it, deliberate and cold. The phone rang. Marlene again, her voice urgent. "Ellie, you've got to see that mansion. Whatever he's hiding, it's there." I gripped the receipt's address. The West Heights location a taunt. "I'm going," I said, my voice hard. "He can't hide anymore." I stood, the forged form and receipt in hand, my apartment's dim light casting long shadows. I taught my students to face problems, to solve for the unknown with logic and courage. Life wasn't as neat as math, but truth was truth. Marlene's story of her son's debts, Lila's bookmark, Vanessa's coldness, they swirled in my mind, pushing me forward. My love for Brandon had been a sacrifice, a gift. Had it been a debt he never planned to repay? I drove toward West Heights, the Phoenix skyline blurring through my tears. Would that mansion hold the key to Brandon's lies? The mansion's doors opened to luxury, but the secrets inside locked my heart. What had Brandon done in my name? The West Heights mansion loomed before me, its glass facade catching the mid-morning sun. I pushed the unlocked door, my sneakers squeaking on polished marble floors. A chandelier glittered above, casting prisms across velvet curtains. The air smelled of fresh paint, tinged with deceit, and a faint jazz record hummed from a hidden speaker, its melody mocking the chaos in my chest. I'd spent 35 years teaching Phoenix kids to solve problems. But this, Brandon's $450,000 loan in my name, the forged bank form, the receipt for a mansion, was no equation. I'd poured my savings into his college, only for him to drop out, his voice bitter. "You suffocated me with expectations, Mom." That resentment, buried years ago, now felt like a clue to his betrayal. I wandered through the mansion's opulence, my fingers brushing a wine cellar's oak door, its bottles gleaming like trophies. The living room's leather sofas, still wrapped in plastic, screamed wealth Brandon and Vanessa couldn't afford. My pension, my careful life, couldn't sustain this. My heart pounded, anger surging over the hurt of Brandon's lies. It's just a mix-up and Vanessa's curt text, "Ask Brandon." I climbed the staircase, each step heavy, drawn to an office at the end of the hall. The door creaked open, revealing a desk, a laptop, and stacks of papers. My breath caught as I spotted loan documents, my name glaring in black ink, the signature a clumsy forgery. The loops were wrong, the slant off. My hands shook, rage boiling. Brandon hadn't just stolen money, he'd stolen my trust. A locked drawer in the desk caught my eye, its key glinting on a shelf. I turned it, the click loud in the quiet room. Inside, a yellowed envelope addressed to me in Brandon's college scrawl. My fingers trembled as I opened it, unfolding a letter that cut deeper than any loan. "Mom's expectations suffocated me," it read. "Her rules, her sacrifices, they ruined my life. I owe her nothing." I gasped, tears spilling, the words a verbal slap. I'd worked nights tutoring to fund his dreams, only for him to blame me for his failures. The letter wasn't just resentment, it was the motive for his fraud, a personal betrayal that tore at my maternal love. My knees buckled. I sank into the chair, the jazz record's soft notes jarring against my sobs. The phone buzzed, Marlene's name flashing. I put her on speaker, my voice shaking. "Marlene, I found a letter. Brandon, he blames me, says I ruined his life." Her tone hardened, her own son's betrayal echoing in her words. "Photograph it all, Ellie. He can't hide now. My boy tried that. Lies don't last." Her urgency, born from reconciling with her estranged son, steadied me. I grabbed my phone, snapping pictures of the documents, the letter, my hands trembling but resolute. "I'll make him face this," I vowed, my voice low, anger drowning the pain. The forged signatures, the letter's venom, they confirmed Brandon's deliberate deceit. I wasn't just a victim of his greed. I was a target of his hate. I stood, the office's paint smell sharp, my resolve hardening. Marlene's words rang true. Lies don't last. I taught my students to chase truth, to confront the unknown. My love for Brandon had been a gift, not a chain, but he'd twisted it into blame. The letter burned in my hand, a symbol of his betrayal, but I wouldn't let it define me. I pocketed it, the jazz fading as I stepped into the hall, the mansion's luxury a hollow shell. My maternal legacy, Lila's bookmark, my students' trust, was worth more than this stolen palace. Javier's text buzzed, "Brandon's at the bank, acting nervous." Was he covering his tracks? Brandon wasn't just stealing from me, he was a thief to many. How far did his lies stretch? The marble counters of Phoenix Financial Bank gleamed under morning light, the bustle of clients a low hum around me. I stood in a corner office, my sneakers scuffing the polished floor, the air sharp with the scent of coffee and ink. Javier Ruiz, my former student, leaned across his desk, his tie crisp but his eyes wary. I'd taught him algebra, believed in him when he doubted himself, and now he was risking his job for me. My hands clutched the forged loan documents and Brandon's letter from the mansion. Its words, Mom's expectations, suffocated me, still burning. I'd sacrificed everything for Brandon's college, only to have him drop out, blaming me. Raymond's art sketches, abandoned for our family's needs, flashed in my mind, his regret a mirror to my own. Would he stand with me now? Javier slid a folder across, his voice low. "Mrs. Martinez, Brandon's been forging signatures. Not just yours. Multiple clients, vulnerable ones, elderly folks. It funded that West Heights mansion." My breath caught, my fingers tightening on the folder. Pages detailed loans in names I didn't know, all approved by Brandon. "He's a criminal," I whispered, stunned, my anger flaring hotter than ever. Javier nodded, his face tight. I saw red flags, but he's my boss. I had to be sure. His honesty, rooted in gratitude for my teaching, anchored me. But the betrayal of Brandon's greed, targeting people like me, like my students' grandparents, felt like a knife to my values. My 35 years of teaching truth and integrity, mocked by my own son. If your own child shoved you aside, not just with lies, but with their hands, what would hurt more, the betrayal or the blame? This next part, it's not easy to tell, but it changed everything. If you've ever felt unseen by someone you loved, drop a 6 in the comments, because what's coming still makes my chest tighten. I left the bank, my heart pounding, the folder heavy in my purse. Back at my apartment, the evening air carried a neighbor's slow dance music, its gentle notes clashing with the tension gripping me. The grilled chicken scent from days ago lingered, sour now. Raymond sat on the couch, his phone down for once, his gray hair catching the dim light. I dropped the folder and letter on the table, my voice sharp. Brandon's not just stealing from me, Raymond. He's forging loans for vulnerable people. Raymond's eyes widened, then dropped. I gave up my art for this family, he said, his voice low. I thought you pushed Brandon too hard, Ellie. I failed you. His regret, tied to his lost dreams, hit me hard. I softened, but my anger held. He's a thief. Help me stop him. Raymond reached for my hand, his grip firm. I'm with you now, he vowed, our hands clasping, a new bond forming. The phone buzzed. Marlene, her voice urgent. Ellie, what did you find? I told her about the loans, the clients. Her own son's betrayal years ago, now reconciled, fueled her response. My boy came clean, Ellie. Brandon must too. Confront him at the mansion. I nodded, my resolve hardening. Javier's text chimed. Brandon's meeting clients tomorrow. He might suspect you. My pulse quickened. Was he covering his tracks? I paced the apartment, the music's soft rhythm jarring against my racing thoughts. Then, tucked in the folder from the mansion, I found it. A diary entry in Vanessa's handwriting. Brandon's hiding something big. I'm scared. My heart skipped. Was Vanessa complicit or a victim like me? Her coldness, rooted in my missing her wedding, clouded my trust. I sank into a chair, the diary entry heavy in my hand. Raymond's pledge, Marlene's push, Javier's warning, they fueled my determination. I taught my students to face the unknown, to solve problems with courage. Brandon's greed, born from his college dropout and career failures, had turned him into someone I didn't know. My love for him, my sacrifices, tutoring nights, drained savings, had been a gift, not a debt. Vanessa's diary hinted at her fear, but I couldn't be sure. My legacy, my students like Javier, deserved better than Brandon's lies. I grabbed my keys, the mansion's address, a call to action. Was my son ever mine, or just a thief wearing his face? I drove home, the diary entry heavy in my bag, Phoenix's sunset casting long shadows. Could I trust Vanessa's innocence? Vanessa's diary hinted at secrets, but Brandon's rage broke more than my trust. Could I face the son who shattered my keepsake? The West Heights mansion glowed under evening light, its chandelier casting prisms across marble floors. I stood in the office, the air sharp with cleaning product fumes, masking the house's deceit. My hands gripped the forged loan documents and Brandon's letter. Mom's expectations suffocated me, its words a wound that hadn't stopped bleeding. I'd taught Phoenix kids for 35 years to face truth, but this truth, Brandon's fraud targeting me and others, cut deep. The photo frame he'd made in school, a clumsy wooden square with my name carved, sat in my memory, a symbol of our bond. Now it felt like a lie, foreshadowing the destruction I sensed coming. The front door slammed, footsteps echoing. Brandon stormed in, his Rolex glinting, eyes narrowing. Vanessa trailed behind, her diamond necklace catching the light, her face tense. Lila, my granddaughter, hovered near me, her dark curls framing worried eyes. I held up the documents, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. Brandon, a $450,000 loan in my name, forged signatures. Explain. He froze, then scoffed, his voice dripping with scorn. You're meddling, Mom. I thrust the letter forward, its yellowed paper trembling. You blamed me for your failures. Is this why you used my name?" His face twisted and he snatched the frame from the desk, a gift from his school days, and smashed it against the wall. "You're stuck in the past, Mom," he snarled. Glass scattered, the crack echoing like my breaking heart. I gasped, my knees weak, his resentment a personal attack that tore at my maternal love. Vanessa's gasp cut the silence. "Brandon, stop." She clutched her purse, pulling out her diary, her voice shaking. "I wrote this. I suspected you were hiding something." She read aloud. "Brandon's hiding something big. I'm scared." Lila rushed to me, crying, "You're horrible, Dad." Her hands clutched her bookmark, the equation, x2 plus y2 forever, a lifeline of loyalty. Her defense, rooted in our shared math stories, steadied me. Brandon's eyes darted, his voice rising. "I'd have paid the loan, Mom. It was for us." His lie, tied to his college dropout and career failures, fueled my rage. The frame's shards glinted on the floor, a symbol of our fractured bond. My phone buzzed. Marlene, her voice sharp on speaker. "He's cornered Ellie. Demand a bank confession." Her urgency, born from reconciling with her own estranged son, pushed me forward. I stared at Brandon, my anger hardening into resolve. "You'll face this, Brandon," I said, my voice low, unwavering. "Not just for me, for everyone you've hurt." Vanessa's eyes widened, her wedding resentment fading into remorse. Lila's hand squeezed mine, her loyalty a beacon. Brandon turned away, his shoulders slumping, but his partial admission, "I'd have paid it," wasn't enough. My heart ached, but I wouldn't let his greed destroy my legacy. I moved to the desk, the mansion's silence heavy, and noticed his laptop, screen still lit. An email glowed. "Move the funds now." My breath caught, my hands trembling as I closed the screen. Was he planning to escape? Marlene's words echoed. Lies don't last. I'd taught my students to confront problems, to chase truth no matter the cost. Brandon's resentment, his smashed frame, Vanessa's diary, they were pieces of a puzzle I had to solve. Lila's loyalty, Marlene's push, they fueled my defiance. I'd given everything for my son, but he'd broken more than glass. Did my son break my heart, or just a frame I clung to? I closed the laptop, the mansion's silence deafening. Was Brandon planning to run? Brandon's email screamed of more lies, but his hands on me hurt worse. Could I stand up to the son who pushed me away? The morning sun streamed through the panoramic windows of the West Heights mansion, exposing the kitchen's cold opulence. Marble counters gleamed, a coffee maker hummed, ignored, its espresso scent sharp in the air. I stood by the island, my purse heavy with forged documents, Brandon's letter and Vanessa's diary entry. My heart pounded, the memory of Raymond's art sketches, abandoned for our family, stirring in my mind. He'd given up his dreams, just as I'd poured my savings into Brandon's college, only for him to drop out, blaming me for suffocating him. Now his fraud, $450,000 in my name, targeting vulnerable clients, threatened everything. I'd taught truth for 35 years, but today I'd face my son's lies head on. Raymond stood beside me, his gray hair catching the light, his hand brushing mine. "I failed you, Ellie," he said, his voice low. "I blamed you for Brandon's flaws. I'm here now." His regret, tied to his lost art career, grounded me. I nodded, my throat tight. "We end this together." My phone buzzed. Javier, my former student, texting photos of forged client documents from the bank, names of elderly clients, signatures faked by Brandon, funded this mansion's chandeliers and velvet curtains. My anger flared, but Raymond's grip steadied me, his support a new anchor. The front door slammed, footsteps heavy on the marble. Brandon stormed in, his Rolex glinting, eyes wild. Vanessa followed, her diamond necklace dull in the sunlight, her face pale. Lila, my granddaughter, hovered near, clutching her bookmark. Its equation, x2 plus y2 power forever, a symbol of her loyalty. I held up Javier's emailed photos, my voice firm. Brandon, you forged client signatures, not just mine, dozens of people. For this house. He froze, then laughed, a harsh bark. You're ruining my life, Mom. He lunged forward, shoving me against the counter, his hands rough. Stay out of it. Pain shot through my shoulder, my breath catching. Vanessa screamed, Enough! Lila rushed to me, sobbing. You're a monster, Dad. Her tears soaked my blouse, her loyalty a lifeline against Brandon's aggression. The espresso scent turned bitter in my throat, the counter's edge biting into my back. Brandon's push, fueled by his resentment from college failures, was a betrayal deeper than the loan. I steadied myself, anger peaking into resolve. Vanessa stepped forward, her voice trembling. He lied, Ellie. He said you approved the loan. I was blind. Her wedding resentment from my absence years ago crumbled into remorse. She clutched her diary, its entry. Brandon's hiding something big, now a confession. I'm with you, she said, her eyes meeting mine. Lila's hand tightened on mine, Raymond's arm around my shoulders. Their support against Brandon's greed empowered me. We're going to the bank, I said, my voice steel. You'll face this, Brandon. Raymond nodded, his face set. We'll end this together. Brandon backed away, his face flushed, muttering, I was going to pay it. His lie, weak against Javier's evidence, crumbled. I taught my students to confront problems, to seek truth no matter the cost. My maternal love, my sacrifices, nights, tutoring, drained savings, had been for Brandon, but he'd turned them into a weapon. Vanessa's defection, Raymond's pledge, Lila's loyalty, they were my strength now. My phone buzzed again. Javier sending a recorded voicemail. I opened it, Brandon's voice crackling. Creative accounting, that's all. Nobody gets hurt. My heart sank, his admission sealing his guilt. Could I use it to end his lies? I gripped the phone, the mansion's espresso scent fading as I moved toward the door. Phoenix's skyline loomed through the window, its heat shimmering as we drove to the bank. Was my family ever whole, or just a facade I clung to? Brandon's voicemail confessed his crimes, but could I burn away his lies without losing myself? The Phoenix Financial Bank's conference room was sterile, its mahogany table gleaming under fluorescent lights. Papers rustled as I sat across from the director, a stern man with gray temples, his tie knotted tight. Javier Ruiz, my former student, stood by the door, his face taut but professional. My hands gripped my phone, the recorded voicemail from Brandon, creative accounting, nobody gets hurt, a weight in my palm. I'd taught truth for 35 years, but today I'd face my son's deceit head on. Marlene's voice echoed in my mind, her reconciliation with her estranged son, a faint hope for redemption, but justice came first. My heart pounded, resolve steeling me against the pain of Brandon's letter. Mom's expectations suffocated me. I played the voicemail, Brandon's voice crackling through the room. Creative accounting, that's all, he'd said, casual, arrogant. The director's eyes narrowed. Brandon slouched beside Vanessa, paled, his Rolex dull in the light. I slid the forged documents across the table, my name glaring alongside others, elderly clients, vulnerable, betrayed. He forged signatures for years, I said, my voice steady, not just mine. Javier nodded, his honesty risking his job, gratitude for my teaching driving him. Brandon's eyes darted, then he slumped. I did it, he muttered. Targeted accounts nobody checks. Funded the mansion. The director leaned forward, voice cold. Resign. Repay every cent or it's the police. Brandon nodded, defeated, his greed from college failures and career flops exposed. The confession cut, but my resolve held, anger peaking at his betrayal of my values. Hours later, the West Heights mansion's backyard glowed under evening stars, a fire pit crackling, wood smoke curling in the air. I stood by the pit, the letter, I owe her nothing, clutched in my hand. Brandon faced me, his face drawn, Vanessa beside him, her diamond necklace gone. Raymond, his arm around me, stood firm, his regret over his lost art career fueling his support. Lila, my granddaughter, clung to my side, her bookmark in her pocket, her loyalty a beacon. I held the letter up, my voice clear. "Your blame doesn't own me, Brandon." I tossed it into the flames, the paper curling, ash rising. Brandon slumped, muttering, "I deserved better than your penny-pinching life." The unjust sneer, rooted in his college resentment, stung like a whip, my heart lurching. Vanessa recoiled, gasping, "How could you?" Lila squeezed my hand, whispering, "You're my hero, Grandma." The fire's crackle drowned my sorrow, the symbolic act freeing me. Vanessa stepped forward, her eyes wet. "I was wrong, Ellie," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought you approved the loan. I was blind." Her remorse, tied to my missing her wedding, was raw, her support now unwavering. Raymond tightened his grip, murmuring, "You're stronger than I ever knew." Lila's eyes shone, her loyalty rooted in our math story nights. I nodded, my throat tight. "We sell the mansion," I said. "Repay the loan." Vanessa agreed, her face set. "I'll help." The director's terms, restitution, no police, loomed, but freedom felt closer. I mourned my son's fall, his greed from failed ventures a shadow, but Javier's evidence, Vanessa's shift, Raymond's support, they were my strength, my legacy, my students, my family, deserved truth. The fire pit's embers glowed, Phoenix's stars bright above. My heart felt lighter, but a community event loomed tomorrow. Would I reveal Brandon's shame to my friends? Did I lose my son or find myself in his ashes? The community's eyes were on me, my truth heavier than their whispers. Could I expose Brandon's betrayal to those who trusted me? The Phoenix Community Center buzzed with warmth, folding chairs creaking under neighbors and friends. The air carried the rich scent of coffee and fresh pastries from a local bakery, soft jazz weaving through the chatter. I stood at the front, my hands steady but my heart racing. The memory of my students' graduation, their faces bright with trust, fueled my courage. Those kids, like Javier and Tasha, had believed in me, just as this room of familiar faces did now. I'd spent 35 years teaching truth, but tonight I'd share the hardest truth of all, my son's betrayal. The West Heights mansion, the forged loan, the broken frame. They were scars, but I was no longer their victim. Marlene, my best friend, gave me a nod from the front row, her gray curls catching the light. At 58, her wit and warmth, honed by reconciling with her estranged son, had organized this book club. Clara Nguyen, Linda Patel, and Samuel Brooks, my former teaching colleagues, sat nearby, their smiles soft but expectant. Tasha Freeman, a bank manager and another former student, sipped coffee, her eyes curious. Raymond, my husband, stood beside me, his hand brushing mine, his gray hair glinting. His regret over abandoning his art career for our family now drove his pride in me. Vanessa, her diamond necklace gone, sat tense but supportive, her remorse over my missing her wedding clear in her gaze. Lila, my 15-year-old granddaughter, clutched her bookmark, its equation, X2 plus Y2 Aswani forever, a symbol of her loyalty, her eyes shining with admiration. I took a breath, the pastry scent grounding me, and spoke, my voice steady. Brandon used my name for a $450,000 loan, forged signatures, not just mine, but vulnerable clients. I was his mother, not his pawn. The crowd gasped, cups clinking as hands froze. Marlene's eyes shone, her nod urging me on. Clara whispered to Linda, "Unbelievable." My chest tightened. The memory of Brandon's push in the mansion, "You're ruining my life," stinging. But I stood taller, liberated by the truth. The door creaked open, and Brandon shuffled in, pale, his Rolex absent. Marlene had invited him, knowing I needed this moment. I faced him, my voice firm. No more bailouts, Brandon. You're on your own. His eyes dropped and he muttered, I just wanted a better life. The justification, week after his fraud and aggression, felt like a final insult, his lingering entitlement, born from college failures, evoking a murmur of disapproval from the crowd. Samuel shook his head. Tasha's jaw tightened. Brandon turned, shoulders slumped, and left, the door clicking shut. Clara leaned forward, whispering, You're so strong, Ellie. My heart ached for my son, but his greed had isolated him. I wasn't his pawn anymore. Tasha stood, her voice clear. You taught us integrity, Mrs. Martinez. This took courage. Linda added, We're here for you. Samuel nodded, his eyes kind, and Raymond squeezed my hand, murmuring, I'm proud of you. Vanessa's eyes were wet, her support solidifying. I was wrong to doubt you, Ellie, she said, her wedding resentment gone. Lila hugged me, whispering, You're my hero, Grandma. The jazz swelled, the coffee's warmth mixing with their words, wrapping me like a quilt. This community, Marlene's wit, Clara's loyalty, Tasha's gratitude, was my true family now, not the mansion Brandon stole. My liberation felt real, my self-worth reclaimed, though sorrow for my son lingered. As the event ended, I stepped outside, the evening breeze carrying the scent of desert blooms. My heart lifted, lighter than it had been in months. Back at my new home, a modest one-story bought with the bank's compensation, I found an envelope in the mailbox, Brandon's handwriting, an apology. My fingers hesitated, the weight of his betrayal still raw. Would I read his words? Was my strength always there, or forged in his betrayal? Brandon's letter sat unopened, but my new home bloomed with hope. Could I rebuild without his shadow? The marigolds in my garden glowed under the spring 2026 sun, their petals bright against the Phoenix suburbs. Inside my one-story home, the makeshift classroom smelled of chalk dust and apple pie, a neighbor's gift left on my porch. I stood at a small blackboard, my hands steady despite the arthritis, guiding Simon and Louise through fractions. My first teaching day decades ago flashed back, nervous but full of purpose, just like now. That classroom had been my world, shaping kids like Javier and Tasha. Now, this room, with its creaky desk and Lila's bookmark, was my new beginning. Brandon's betrayal, forged loans, a smashed frame, his push, had nearly broken me, but I was free. Simon scribbled an equation, his pencil scratching. Louise frowned, her brows knit. Lila, my 15-year-old granddaughter, leaned in, her dark curls bouncing. You make math fun, Grandma, she said, her smile wide. Her bookmark, with its equation, x2 plus y2 forever, sat on the desk, a symbol of our bond. I smiled back, my heart swelling. You're my best student, I teased, her loyalty a balm after Brandon's lies. The chalk dust tickled my nose, the apple pie's sweetness grounding me. I'd taught for 35 years, sacrificing savings for Brandon's college, only for him to drop out, blaming me. His letter, now in my drawer, begged forgiveness, but its weight felt manipulative, a pull I resisted. Raymond stepped in, carrying a box of books, his gray hair catching the light. Need a hand, Ellie? He asked, his voice warm. He'd given up his art career for our family, a regret that once distanced us. Now, his support was unwavering. I love you, Ellie, he said, setting the box down. I should have seen your strength sooner. His eyes softened, and we sketched together on a spare sheet, his pencil tracing a marigold. Our reconnection, sparked by his regret, felt like a gift. I touched his hand, the chalk dust smudging his fingers. We're building something new, I said, my voice steady. The classroom's warmth, Lila's laughter wrapped me in purpose. The doorbell chimed and Marlene and Tasha stepped in, their arms full of pastries. Marlene's gray curls bounced, her wit sharp. Ellie, this place is you, she said, her pride clear. Her own reconciliation with her estranged son fueled her joy in my growth. Tasha, my former student, grinned. "You're still teaching, Mrs. Martinez. It's inspiring." Her gratitude, rooted in our classroom days, warmed me. We sat, coffee mugs clinking, and Lila mentioned, "Mom's filing for divorce, Grandma. She's scared." My heart skipped. Vanessa's break from Brandon, her remorse over my missed wedding, shifted our bond. I nodded, cautious. "I'll talk to her," I said, but Brandon's letter loomed. "He sent an apology," I told Marlene, my voice firm, "but he must earn trust first." I texted him, "Right, don't visit." The boundary felt right, my liberation deepening. Marlene sipped her coffee, saying, "You're living for you now, Ellie." Tasha nodded, sharing community news, a book club, a bake sale. Simon and Louise packed up, their fractions solved, their smiles bright. Lila hugged me, her bookmark gleaming. Raymond's sketch lay on the table, a marigold in bloom. Brandon's letter, unopened, was a shadow. But my community, Lila's loyalty, Raymond's love, Marlene's pride, Tasha's gratitude, was my light. I'd been undervalued, but no more. Did I redefine family, or did they find me in my strength? I tended my marigolds, their petals bright. Lila's words echoed. Vanessa needed me. Would I step in to help? My chalkboard was alive, my heart fuller than ever. Could I live for myself, even with Brandon's shadow lingering? Spring 2026 bathed my one-story Phoenix home in warmth, the garden humming with bees, marigolds nodding in the breeze. Inside, the living room glowed with the aroma of fresh coffee, mugs clinking as laughter spilled from my book club. The memory of my students' graduation, their proud faces beaming, echoed in this moment. My community, my chosen family, reflecting the legacy I'd built over 35 years of teaching. Brandon's letter, unopened in my drawer, was a faint shadow. His fraud, $450,000 in my name, forged signatures, a smashed frame, now a scar I'd overcome. I stood by the table, a tray of homemade apple pie slices in hand, my arthritis a dull ache, my heart light with purpose. Marlene, her gray curls bouncing, raised her mug, her wit sharp. To Ellie, our fearless leader. Claire Nguyen, Linda Patel, and Samuel Brooks, my former teaching colleagues, cheered, their faces warm with respect. Tasha Freeman, my old student turned bank manager, grinned, her eyes bright. Lila, my 15-year-old granddaughter, stood up, her dark curls framing a nervous smile. "I wrote something for you, Grandma," she said, unfolding a paper. Her voice trembled as she read her poem, "To Grandma, my hero. You taught me numbers, love, and truth, your strength a light that never fades." Tears stung my eyes, her words a mirror to our math story nights, her bookmark, X2 plus Y2 Rakar forever, tucked in my pocket. The room fell silent, then erupted in applause, Clara wiping her eyes, Linda squeezing my arm. Lila's loyalty rooted in our bond wrapped me like a quilt, my liberation complete. I set the pie down, the coffee's warmth mingling with the room's laughter. Raymond, his gray hair catching the light, hung a new sketch on the wall, a marigold-framed classroom, his art revived after years of regret. "You've built a family, Ellie," he said, his voice soft, his hand finding mine. His sacrifice, abandoning art for our family, had once distanced us, but now his devotion shone. I smiled, my heart full. "We built this," I said, gesturing to the room. I'd advised Vanessa on her divorce yesterday, offering support but not control, her remorse over my missed wedding now a bridge to healing. "Vanessa's starting over," I told the group, my voice steady. "She's free, like me." Marlene nodded, her own reconciliation with her son fueling her pride. "You're living for you now, Ellie," she said, her eyes shining. Later, as we cleared plates, Tasha shared news. Brandon's working at an insurance office, paying off debts. My breath caught, the unopened letter flashing in my mind. His fraud, born from college dropout resentment and career failures, had cost him his job, his marriage, his pride. The news was a micro twist, a glimmer of change, but not enough. I shook my head, my voice firm. If he changes, I'll listen. But not yet. I'd texted him to write, not visit, setting boundaries that felt right. Clara approached, her voice soft. You taught us resilience, Ellie. Samuel added, this community's yours. Tasha grinned, you're still our teacher. Their support, rooted in my classroom days, was my true family, not the mansion Brandon stole. I stepped outside, gazing at the garden, bees buzzing among the marigolds. The pie's sweetness lingered on my tongue, the coffee's warmth in my hands. I'd been undervalued, betrayed, but no more. Lila's poem, Raymond's sketch, Marlene's joy, the community's love, they were my legacy, not Brandon's lies. I declared to myself, my voice a whisper, this is my life, full mine. His letter could wait. My heart was here now. Was my greatest lesson teaching others or learning to love myself? As I drove home from the bank, Vanessa's diary entry heavy in my bag, I felt the weight of Brandon's betrayal, his forged loans, his resentment, lift into a resolve to face the truth. My heart, once broken by his lies, found strength in Raymond's renewed support and Lila's unwavering love, reminding me that family isn't just blood, it's the trust we build. In life, we may pour love into those who hurt us, but holding fast to our worth can mend what's broken. Like my students learning equations, we grow by facing hard truths with courage, finding love in unexpected places. If this story stirred your heart, please share your thoughts with us. Your voice matters.